The one thing that we never want to consider is the possibility of a life without children. The fear of going through so much and for nothing is just too painful to comprehend. But what if it wasn't so scary? What if, even after everything, it actually led you to a beautiful, rich, and full life? This is the conversation that no one is having, but it is such an important one, and I'll explain exactly why in today's episode.
Welcome to Your Journey to Fertility. This is the podcast that blends both science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Here each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so you can stop stressing that you'll never have a baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me today and just sharing your time and pressing play. I appreciate it more than you know. And today's conversation is a big one. It is a very emotional one, and it's not something that anyone trying to conceive wants to talk about or is talking about. It was certainly not a conversation I see happening now or when I was trying to conceive as well. And the reason I wanted to have Lisa on today is because when you come up against these huge mental blocks, your brain just goes la, 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 and it tries to tune it out. It's like, no, shut down, cannot cope. A huge trigger like this is causing a dysregulation in your nervous system because your brain is terrified that this will happen. Even the idea of it is terrifying. To your brain, the idea of not having a family feels like life or death. It feels like you won't survive. But when we break it down and ask ourselves, why is it so scary? Things can start to shift and start to change. And having conversations like this one, it doesn't mean that you're telling the universe that this is what you want. What you're actually doing is telling your brain that you've considered the worst possible scenario and you survived. Because in doing this, we break down that fear, we break down all of that panic and overwhelm and, that immediate response of going into fight or flight or survival mode. And this allows you to stay more anchored in a place of regulation. So you're not constantly battling the stress of these thoughts and, that rise of cortisol that happens every time these thoughts come up. So my guest today is Lisa from Family Redefined. Lisa is a coach specializing in supporting women who are childless, not by choice. After navigating her own journey through infertility, pregnancy loss, and the difficult decision to stop fertility treatments, she understands the grief and the challenges that come with ending the journey without a baby. She helps women find acceptance, reclaim their joy, and build a fulfilling life beyond infertility. I asked Lisa so many very deeply personal questions in this interview, and I think they are also the questions that you would want to know too. So I hope this episode speaks to you and helps you move past the fear of the unknown. Here's Lisa. Lisa, I'm just so honored that you joined me here on the podcast today. You speak about such an important subject matter that we just do not address enough. And maybe excited is the wrong word. I'm really keen to get into everything that we're going to talk about today. So big welcome to you. Can we start by learning who you are and what is the work that you do?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here too. Thank you. I'm Lisa, like Jen said, and I support women who are ending their fertility journey without a baby, find joy and hope and acceptance, which sounds probably impossible to many people. And I am living proof that it is possible.
Yeah, wow. And as we were saying just before we hit record, this is something that no one wants to acknowledge. When you go through these tough journeys and things just aren't working out the way that you want them to, the last thing that you want to acknowledge or accept is the possibility that it won't work out because it's scary. It's so scary to think what your life might be like, right? And I'm aware that you have quite a long personal journey of your own. Would you be okay to share how your journey unfolded and where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always wanted children, but I was older when I met my husband. We were the same age, and he also always wanted children. So we were in our late 30s when we started dating, but we knew pretty quickly that we wanted to be together. I guess that's the benefit to meeting somebody when you're older. And so we talked about kids and we decided that we would try, just to have fun and see what happens. And nothing was happening. And I didn't immediately panic. I was like, you know what? We are a little bit older. Maybe we just need a little bit of help. It's not a big deal. And so I went to my doctor and she said, I want you to like really actively try for like 3 months. And then if nothing happens, then I'll make a referral for you, which is what she ended up doing. So we actually got engaged in that time. And then we went to a fertility clinic and answered like 1,000 questions and had a bunch of tests done. And they brought us back to talk about those results. The doctor told me that my chances of getting pregnant naturally were about as good as getting hit by a car crossing on a light, which if anybody has heard me on a podcast before, you've heard me talk about that all the time, but it was a profound moment. It was a very painful moment. And I kind of blanked out after that because I was like, what? That's a terrible thing to say to someone. And so I cried pretty much all the way home. Basically, he told me my egg quality was very low and my egg reserves were very low. And I didn't know what a lot of that meant. And so my husband said to me on the way home that day, he was like, I don't want you to be sad. Like, if it's just you and me, I'm good. Like, we're good. Which means the world to me. And I still remember that moment with him, but I didn't want to give up yet. But at this point, because we were engaged, I said to him, like, let's just put it on hold for a little bit. Like, I just want to focus on planning our wedding. If something was to happen, I would blame myself. And I just, don't want that. So we did that. And 1 month after we got married, we did get pregnant naturally. And we were both like super shocked, very excited. That didn't unfortunately last for very long. When we went to have our first ultrasound, there was no heartbeat. And so sadly, we lost that pregnancy, which actually only led me to become like even more determined to get pregnant. Like everyone says to you, like, oh, well, at least you can get pregnant. And I came from a family, and my mom has a very large family. And so I just figured we would just need a little bit of help and everything would be fine. And so we did like the first cycle where they monitor you without meds or whatever. And we had a chemical pregnancy, which I had never heard of before. So that threw me for a loop because I was like, what even is that? So I kind of felt like I was miscarrying all over again, which in some ways I was. And then we did the medicated cycles. And I remember saying to my aunt who helped me with the first injection, because I was a bit nervous about it. And she's like, well, I want you to be able to do this yourself. And I was like, well, I'm not going to have to do it by myself again because this is going to work. Like I had this, myself convinced that if I had this really positive attitude, everything would align and it would work out. And as you can imagine, it did not work out. And we did many, many, many medicated cycles, lots of timed intercourse, which, anybody who's going through fertility treatment knows is not fun. It's not fun. It's not exciting. It's very routine and mechanical. And so we did that and nothing was working. And then our name. So in Canada, you can get one cycle of IVF covered. So you have to pay for your meds and stuff, but the actual procedure itself can be covered. And so our name came up on that list. So we did all the medications. We paid all the thousands of dollars for all the medications. And I was being realistic going into that, thinking like, there's a chance here that, we won't get any well-graded embryos, right? Like this. However, I didn't know that my body just may not respond to the meds at all, which is what happened. So I did not respond to the meds and I was heartbroken. The doctor suggested that I try again. That like sometimes this happens and you should try again. So we tried again and my body still didn't respond to the meds. So I was a basket case and pretty much it was like, okay, we're going to do an egg donor, And my husband said, like, let's just slow down a minute, right? Like, let's just talk this out a bit. How much more of this can you take? He's like, it's easy for me to say, let's keep going. I'm not having to go through all of this. It's you. And I just want you to really be sure. If this is what you want, then I'll do that. But I just want you to be sure. And when I gave it some thought, I was like, he's right. I don't know that I can do this anymore, because an egg donor is still not a guarantee. And I just wanted to find, like, I lost myself in that journey, right? I didn't know who I was anymore. I would look at pictures of myself before fertility treatment and be like, who is that woman? I don't know her anymore. And so it was from there that I realized that there's no support for women that are in this position. I mean, I will give my naturopath credit. She continued to see me afterwards, and we did what she would call healing acupuncture. And she was a tremendous support to me in that time, but she was the only one that remained with me. I mean, the fertility clinic was like, okay, well, if you change your mind or you want to, do an egg donor, let us know. But otherwise there was nothing. And I just was like, I'm not the only woman that's coming out of this clinic without a baby. Like, the stats are quite high that it's not successful. And I've worked in the field of mental health for my entire career. And I was like, how can I take these two things, my lived experience and, my experience working in the mental health field, to help other women that are going through this, to get through it, to manage it, to cope with all of the roller coaster of emotions that come with, deciding, first of all, even saying, okay, I'm done. Like, that's not an easy decision to make. You have to deal with all the what ifs, and it's a lot of grieving, right? Like, so much grief. So, and then, I mean, I guess I should honor my business coach who found me and really helped me sort of figure out, like, how to do this. And that's what's led me here. It's trying to create awareness and talking about the things that no one talks about. And yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that, Lisa. And the things these doctors say, that you've got the same chance of getting pregnant as you do being hit by a car. What?
Crossing on a light.
Crossing on a light. In what world is that okay?
I do not know. I do not know. Like I said, I think I kind of sat there in shock for a little while, because I was like, did he just say that? Like, and there's times where I think to myself, like, did I make that up? I was like, I can't make that up. Like, that. No, that happened.
No, you didn't make that up. And that is,
we did end up actually switching clinics. So when we went back to doing treatment, we went with a different clinic, and they were much, much kinder. And I had some fabulous nurses that I don't know what I would have done without. They just were so great at helping manage my anxiety and validating everything that I was going through. And I had a lovely doctor as well.
Yes, well done.
Yeah.
I too had an experience where you just sit there dumbfounded thinking, is that really what was just said to my face? Yes, it was. Time to find a new doctor. We'll just add that one to the list, Lisa.
Yeah. Like, things people say. Yeah.
What did that process of coming to that decision look like? And I can so relate to that, being in that mode of, okay, well, this didn't work. And I had exactly the same situation as you, where I didn't respond to IVF meds at all. And you're left with, well, just do donor eggs. And it's like, okay, well, let's just go. Let's just keep going. And, you get stuck in this like adrenaline loop of, I've got to keep going. What is the next thing? I can't stop. I can't slow down. I'm running out of time. And just being in this horrible survival mode state. So how did you come out of that? And what did that decision process look like?
It wasn't pretty at first. I was an ugly mess. Well, I shouldn't say ugly, but I spent a lot of time grieving, and I didn't make the decision like within a day, right? Like I sat with it. Like, I think that was one of the best things my husband ever did to me. For me, there was a couple of amazing things that he did for me through this journey, but that was one that I'm forever grateful for, that he, said to me, like, just take some time. And so, I think my naturopath was really helpful with that for me. She was very knowledgeable. She was very supportive. She didn't push me one way or another. She was just there for me, and she sat in that discomfort with me. I think I had to become comfortable being uncomfortable for a while. And I think that's really where it started for me. And then I needed to realize that my life wasn't over, and that just because I had to give up on this dream that I'd always had, didn't mean that I wasn't going to have a future full of happiness and love. And we are blessed with 7 amazing nieces and 1 very awesome nephew. And we just like shower them with all the love that we would have given to our own children. And I had to look for other ways to give that love that I had saved up for a child and sort of recognize those, I think, and find myself again, right? And give myself permission to grieve, but also like acknowledge that I wasn't any less of a woman because I wasn't a mom, and that there was just still so much more life to live. And I had to find I started looking for the positives of not being a mom, to be honest. That was probably one of the biggest things for me, was looking for those things. I'll never forget my husband and my brother and his family were staying with us for a little bit. And my brother's oldest was having a full out temper tantrum, and he was trying to deal with it. And my husband and I were just sitting off to the side, and we just kind of looked at each other and we were like, we won't have to deal with that. Like, that's never going to be an issue for us. But it was like moments like that really had so much power for us, I would say, is that like looking for those little moments and then recognizing that our family and our loved ones and friends all didn't see us as any less and appreciated us just the same as whether or not we had or had not had children. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but
of course it
was a process. Yeah. And I think it's different for everyone depending on, their support system. And, I've talked to a lot of women who weren't as lucky as I was, and to have the amount of support that I had. My best friend went through the same thing. She, like, all the same things that happened to me happened to her. And so I was really, really, really lucky to have her as well. And a lot of people don't have that. Like, that's pretty unheard of.
I would say most people don't have that.
Yeah.
You're talking about this area, and and I have so many questions for you, but just how did you navigate the response from other people when you made this decision? I can imagine the stuff that people would say to you. Don't lose hope, just keep trying. You never know. Did you keep not trying after a while? Did you just see what would happen? Was there still hope in?
I think there was a little bit of an inkling, like a hope that maybe it would just happen naturally, but not for very long. That didn't last for very long. And I was very, very honest with people who made comments, not necessarily blunt. Sometimes the bluntness would call for bluntness, but I would often say, like, no, emotionally and physically, my husband and I really were done, and we want to look forward now. I appreciate your, depending on the audience, it still comes up, like the, why don't you adopt? And then sometimes I'm actually pretty honest and say, like, that's actually a really intrusive process as well. And it's not a guarantee. And we'd already been through a very intrusive, lengthy process, and I wasn't interested in going into that again. And it's also very expensive. So, I try to take the opportunity as a moment to educate people so that they understand that your heart might be in the right place when you're making those comments, but they're very painful for those of us that are in the depths of this to hear, because you haven't been through any of it. And so for you, it seems like a really simple thing to just not give up hope, or to just adopt, or just use an egg donor. But for those of us that have been going through this for years, it's not there's no just about it. And so, yeah, that's kind of where, and like boundaries, I think, well, that's not something I really want to talk about, but that absolutely. And being okay to say that. Like, I can't say this enough. Like, I really had to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because there are so many moments. It doesn't make me uncomfortable anymore, but for the first, I would say, year or so, it was an uncomfortable topic. I hated being asked, do you have kids? But now I'm like, no, we tried, and that wasn't in the cards for us.
Can I ask you about being triggered, and how many years has it been now since you made that decision?
3 years.
3 years. So I can imagine shortly after you had made that decision to stop trying, that things could have been very triggering, especially stupid comments from people and, potentially seeing families and all of the things that we all get triggered by, right? Do you still get triggered now?
Every now and then, yeah. I think the difference now is that I will like honor it and allow myself to feel whatever I need to feel in that moment. So if I want to cry, I'll cry.
Mm.
Uh, if I need to talk it out with someone, then I'll talk it out with someone. Whereas before, I think there was this idea that I had to just be okay, and not necessarily for myself, but like for everyone else. Right. Like I wouldn't want to but now I have learned that it's okay for me to feel my feels. That's what I like to say. But the triggers are much fewer and farther between at this point. I've had really people close to me succeed in fertility treatment and been genuinely happy for them. My brother and his wife had a third baby, and she was not at all planned. And they were very sensitive and kind in the way that they chose to tell me about that pregnancy. But I was ecstatic for that pregnancy. I didn't feel that way when they told us they were pregnant with their second, because that was like literally a month after I'd miscarried. And so that was a really hard one for me. So it felt really good to be excited for them. So, and like, that's genuine. I genuinely feel that for people now. And I even got to a point where, like I said to you, there was a point probably for about 6 months, maybe after we stopped trying, where I thought like, maybe it'll just happen by accident. But then I got to a point where I was like, I don't want it to happen by accident. Like I'm done now. Like I am at peace with that decision. I don't want it to happen, which was an interesting feeling when you spend so much time, right? Like trying and praying and hoping and putting all of your being into.
And so many of us that are listening to this can relate to that. I mean, the process of going through fertility, it takes up every single moment of your existence, right? At the moment you wake up in the morning, it's on your mind, and you structure your day and your life and your whole thought process around, will I be able to get pregnant this cycle? Or what do I need to do? What do I need to do differently? And then it's going through your mind when you fall asleep. I imagine that there was so much relief in ending that continuous cycle. Can you talk a little bit about what that looked like for you?
Yeah, relief is a very good word. It was like a light came back on at the end of the tunnel, right? Like it was a pretty dark place to be in. And like I said, I didn't know who I was anymore. I rarely felt joy in anything because, like you said, my entire life revolved around trying to get pregnant. I wouldn't commit to certain plans because I didn't know where I would be on my cycle, or I was going to be in a certain place in my cycle. So I missed out on things with my friends. I couldn't experience life to the fullest. And like I remember an aunt of mine who I'm really close to saying to me after I quit, she's like, the difference in you is so incredible. She's like, there's a lightness about you that she's like, it's just really nice to see. And I'm just so proud of you. And she was right. There was just this like, you're carrying around this heavy, heavy backpack all the time. And I felt light. I felt like I could breathe again. I felt like excited about life and like what might come next. And we got a puppy like not long after that. And like, yeah, just I felt good. I felt content, actually, is the word. I felt content.
That is such a hard thing to consider, I think, when you're stuck in the middle of this journey, and that feeling of, will I ever find joy again? It's just so foreign and just doesn't feel possible. So what does your life look like now? I mean, when you don't have to worry about all of these things, what is the upside? Like what is your life able to give you now?
We travel more. We go on spontaneous dates all the time. Like no plan, no like actual like destination in mind. We just go. My husband will get to an intersection and be like, which way do you want to go? And like, we do stuff like that all the time. We just live like, we love camping. We have, a really beautiful fifth wheel trailer. So we go away camping, and sometimes we go with our family who has kids and enjoy that. We spoil our nieces and nephew, and we try to do more experiences with them than gifts, because then we can spend time with them and make memories with them. We love our dogs to pieces. We spoil them like they're our children, because they are. What else can I say? I don't know. I just
Sounds pretty good, by the way.
I love sleeping in. I love sleeping in. I love sleep. I love to sleep in. That's a huge perk for me. I didn't, it's March break in Canada this week, and I didn't have to figure out anything. I just continued to do what I do. And, not having to figure out summer camp, and just, being us. And to some people that sounds horrible. And I'm sure to many people who are listening who, are still in the depths, or maybe on the cusp of deciding to keep going or to quit, that sounds like ridiculous. And I would at one point have agreed. And here I am, like, truly enjoying my life. I don't have any regrets. I know that we did everything that we felt we wanted to do at the time to have a child. And we think about our angel baby all the time and always try to honor that baby, but we don't stop it from allowing us to enjoy our lives and to be happy and enjoy and look forward to what comes next for us as a couple.
It sounds like you have a pretty awesome husband.
I do have an awesome husband. I really.
But I imagine, this whole journey and this whole industry really is so focused around women, and it should be, let's be honest. But I can imagine that there was a big grieving process for him as well. And like you said, that he was the one that had to watch you go through all of these very difficult, traumatic experiences. So what was the process like for him of deciding to stop trying?
I think his process was a bit different. I think, honestly, the watching me go through it was the more difficult part for him. I think deciding to quit was actually the easy part for him. We actually came up today. We were talking about something and I was like, how come you weren't like that with our fertility treatment? Because he was stressing about being late for an appointment because we had another appointment that was out of his control for our dog. And he's like, because that was all you. He's like, I didn't have anything to control. But I think just that he could not make that better for me. He couldn't make it work for me. He couldn't make it be faster. He couldn't, I think just watching what it was doing to me was really, really difficult for him. So I think when I said, you're right, like, it's time for us to just be us and be happy. I think for him, that was like, okay, like, I'm good for that. And like he said to me, even before we went into this journey, right, was, if it's just you and me, I'm good. I don't need anything more than you. And he's living that. Like, he proves that to me every day. Yeah.
Loss of coming to the end of your journey, and it is such a big loss. And you speak so much about grief. And I think, especially when you've been through pregnancy loss and just endless rounds of treatments that haven't been successful, like, it's just so much. And where do you even start? Like, what are some of the biggest challenges that you find come up for the women or the couples that you work with?
I think that bitterness, envy, I think those, anger. I remember feeling so angry at my body. Like, why can't you do this one thing that seems so easy for so many people? But yet, like, I think that, and then seeing people just be able to have one right after another, after another, after another. And here you are, and you just want one, baby. I think that those were the two things. And those are the two things that I hear the very most. On top of that, I think that those that love us whose intentions are typically very, very good, say really, really hurtful, stupid things sometimes. And it's really, really hard to navigate that, especially when, you are leaning towards being done. And, you hear that like, well, you wouldn't understand. You don't have kids. Like that comment is said a lot. And that's a hard thing to hear as someone who tried so hard to have children of their own. And it is one that my husband and I have heard. Not in a long time because we've been pretty blunt when we've heard it. So, and sorry, was the other question like how did I navigate that?
How do you help the women and the couples
How do I help the women
navigate that? Yeah, where do you even start?
Yeah, so I have a program. I call it Childless, Not Less, and it's a 5-step program. It's 10 weeks. There's 5 steps, and each step I spend 2 weeks on. So the first step, we focus on trigger identification and what I call coping ahead. And actually, before I get started, I should say that I use a lot of what are dialectical behavior skills in this course. I'm a trained DBT skills facilitator at work. And so as I was learning these skills so that I could teach them to the families that I support, I started using them in my own life and was like, these are game changers for me. And they helped me. And I was like, I can use this to help other women. So coping ahead is actually a DBT skill. So I teach that. And then we move on to self-validation and boundary setting. And then we move on to honoring your story, honoring just everything that you've been through and really talking about that. Step 4 is around acceptance. And what does that look like for everyone? Because again, that looks very different for everyone. And step 5 is about what does it look like to find joy again? What does it look like to look forward with a smile on your face rather than tears in your eyes? So I offer that as a one-to-one program, and I offer that as a group program. That's my sort of signature program. But I also have a free resource that I recently wrote. And it's about ending your fertility journey with more empowerment and peace. And people can find that free resource on my website, which is www.familyredefinedwithlisa.com. And it's right there on the homepage. There's a spot to click to download it. And it shares a bit of my own story, a bit of what I did when I was sort of coming to that place of deciding to end my journey. It goes through some different ways to sort of cope with all of the different emotions that come up for you as you're trying to make that decision. It has like a little quiz in it about like, are you at that place? Are you maybe not at that place? And then it concludes with just some other ways that I could support if somebody was looking for more support. So I just wanted to provide something with women, something for women who haven't quit yet, but are just tired and not sure how much more they can take, so that they wouldn't feel so alone, because it's such a lonely, lonely place to be when you're having that thought. And some women are afraid to say it out loud, right? And so this is just a free resource that women can go and they can download. They don't have to tell anybody about it, read through it, get some ideas from someone who's been there, and hopefully it's helpful.
Thank you. And I'll make sure we add a link to that in the show notes as well, Lisa. Thank you. I just got a couple more questions that I wanted to ask you about grief, because there's so much grief, not just the decision to end this journey, but I mean, everything that you lose along the way. There's so much loss, and the trauma of that I think we really underestimate, and just society in general doesn't give enough attention to how hard some of these journeys are. So how, you mentioned before, you sort of sat with your grief rather than just pretended that you were okay. How did you do that? And what does that look like? What does that look like to honor your grief?
I journaled a lot. I did some counseling of my own. I talked about it. I think a lot of us are There were times where I would go into the shower and just cry by myself, but I don't recommend that because I had somebody sitting out there in the living room that would have been more than happy to hold me while I cried. So I think that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that I could give to women is don't feel like you have to grieve in private. You'd be surprised, from how much your partner wants to support you. You'll be surprised how much your friends want to support you. And sometimes we do need to cry in private, but just make sure it's not always in private and write it out. Like writing it out was so cathartic for me. And I think even just being able to offer this support and being able to talk about this on podcasts. And I actually recently wrote an article for a small magazine, and writing that stuff out for me has been really, really healing. It's been a huge part of my healing is to write. I've started blogging, which is also on my my website, but you can start a blog without sharing it for people. Like it can be your own private blog, but I highly recommend just getting it out. Whether, maybe you're not a writer, maybe you're, you want to talk it out, but just get it out. All of those thoughts that you're having, I guarantee you're not alone with those thoughts. I promise that probably every single woman that is going through this is having those thoughts. Just don't stuff it. Stuffing it it's just going to prolong the journey. And it's okay to grieve. Like, even if you haven't had a pregnancy loss, every failed fertility treatment is a pregnancy loss, right? Like, and I don't think that as a society, we honor that enough. People just think that like, you can just try again. Yes, I can try again, but I wanted it to work that time. And so like, I'm allowed to be sad about that. There's a lot of grief for a life that you really wanted and planned out, in your head, and you thought of names and vacations you were going to take as families. Like it's okay to grieve all of that stuff. And the grief, I will say, never goes away. I've just learned to live with it and to grow around it and keep space for that grief. Because I'll always feel it. I wanted to be a mom, and it will always make me a little bit sad that that's not something I got to do, and that my husband didn't get to be a dad. That's always going to be something that I live with. It's just not something that prevents me from also experiencing joy and happiness and contentment in my life.
I think that's one of the things that scares people the most is that they will always be grieving this loss and they will always be sad. And yes, that is absolutely true, but It doesn't mean that it will take over your entire life.
No.
I wish I hadn't lost a baby. I wish I hadn't had to go through tens of thousands of dollars worth of treatments. And, and yes, that's all in the past. And yes, I have moved on, but it is still there. And, that's always going to be a part of my journey and myself, basically.
Yeah, it makes us who we are. Yeah.
Doesn't it? But you don't have to let it define who you are for the rest of your life.
Exactly. It doesn't have to define you. But yeah, I would never, ever tell a woman that she's going to stop grieving, or man. It's just something that you learn just when you lose a loved one. It's the same process. Every now and then it's going to pop up and it might feel a little bit heavier that day, and that's okay. And that will happen less and less and less as time goes on.
I think that's so important to say. My last question for you is just around anyone who is listening to this who thinks that perhaps ending their journey is a possibility for them. What advice would you give them, and where should they start to bring their attention if that's something that they're considering?
My best advice to them is, I think I've said it already, but to give yourself time to grieve. Give yourself time to even write out the pros and cons. Like I said, writing is, I find, really powerful. To be able to see it on a piece of paper, it might make it easier to see the plus side of quitting, right? Like what you won't have to be carrying anymore. And I mean, obviously I share lots of material on my Instagram that is meant to be supportive and create awareness and help women feel like they're less alone in this. It's not like I don't really like to use my Instagram page so much for sales. If people are interested in what I'm doing, it is all on my website and they can find it there. I have other free resources too, like date night ideas, and I have a guide to just navigating your childlessness as well. Just have faith that your journey isn't over. Your journey to motherhood might be over, but your journey to life and joy and happiness is not over. And you are still deserving of a wonderful, happy life, no matter how that looks. And I just want you to know that that joy is in reach, that it's not, it may feel like it's never. I feel like I'm bubbling all of my words. You're probably going to have to edit some of this, but like you might feel like joy is unattainable. And I'm living proof that it really is attainable. You just need to give yourself time to process, to grieve, to feel sad, to cry it out, to maybe scream in a pillow. I remember being outside on a walk, just screaming at the universe, and like, just let all those things out. Give yourself that time and space, and then sit down and think about like doing something amazing that maybe you wouldn't be able to do if you had kids.
Give yourself back some of those gifts that have been taken away. So, Lisa, thank you so much for everything that you have shared today. I just so appreciate what you put out into the world, because it is not said enough, as we mentioned. And I would encourage anyone who is at that stage of their journey that, they're not sure if this is something they can continue doing, to reach out to you. So thank you again for being here. And I look forward to talking to you again someday soon.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening right to the end of this episode. And if you found that it was something that helped you, then please hit share, and just, you never know who might benefit from hearing these conversations and just going a little bit deeper into their own journeys as well. And just a reminder, if you have any questions about the podcast, or just about your own journey, or any of the ways that the spiritual path interconnects with the science on this journey, you can submit a question for the podcast, which I can then address in an upcoming episode. So there is a link down below in the show notes where you just click on it. You can record your question, and I would love to help you get some answers to that. So on the next episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about how to actually stop doing all the things, all the things that make you obsessive and crazy on this journey, but still being able to support your fertility at the same time. It is such a fine line to find that balance. So we are going to explore that in detail. So I can't wait to have you back for that episode next week. But until then, I'm sending you all my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in Mind-Body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.